scene was in a park. Yutaka was smoking there, commenting on the girl who was sitting with him that Santa wasn't going to come even if they were good kids. The girl replied that she would be good, depending on what Santa would give her as a gift. Yuta asked what she wanted. She replied that she wanted a boyfriend. He said that she would get one. She looked at him and asked the reason for why not, stating that kids of those years always wanted that. Then she asked what he would want. Yuta replied that he would want money. She commented that it seemed he wasn't hung up on his ex-girlfriend. Yuta thought about the girl who was sitting with him, realizing that she was Ayaka, and he had been hanging out with her since they were second-year students in high school. Ayaka said to him that she knew. She then asked him if he was still in touch with his ex, but he wasn't because he didn't have any guys to do that. Yuta thought that Ayaka was so pretty, and a lot of men approached her, but because of her personality, she hadn't been able to connect with any of them. Yuta shouted at her that she was laughing a lot. She apologized for that, and then she asked why he didn't start coming to a mixer. She even offered to be his Santa if he wanted. Yuta replied that he would go to a mixer if she paid for him. She was shocked and asked why she would do that. Just then, Yuta replied that he would pass, put his cigarette in the dustbin, and started to leave. She asked why he was leaving, and Yuta replied that he had a part-time job that day, with a lot of shifts like a madman. Ayaka suggested to him that if he changed his mind, he should contact her online. Waving his hand, he agreed, and while leaving, he thought that he had lied to her about his part-time job. He remembered that he had just had his heart broken a month ago, and wasn't ready to go to a mixer yet, plus he reeked of smoke. As he walked, he reached the market and was disappointed to come across a decorated date spot. The area was beautifully adorned for Christmas. Someone asked him if he wanted the Christmas cake, and another person suggested that they had chickens as well. However, Yuta denied all of them. Just as someone told him to take a look at the paper, Yuta moved his hand to decline, accidentally causing all of those papers to fall. Before they could pick them up, some boys walked over them, making them dirty. Yuta apologized and said that he would pay for that. She replied that it was fine and then apologized for suddenly giving him a flyer like that. She mentioned that the gag was fixed, so she would explain the situation to her manager after getting all the clean ones. Yuta declined and said that he was coming with her as well to explain that to the manager. He then looked at her body and realized that she was wearing Santa's costume. When he saw her face, he found her so cute, and all the men who were passing by were definitely looking at her. She thanked him for his help, and Yuta replied that it was fine because it was his fault after all. She said that it would be a great help to her because her manager was so strict. But was he sure he wanted to do that? And she still had around 1 hour to finish her shift. Yuta replied that he could wait until then, and he was going to the university around there, so he had some places to pass the time. There was a cafe ahead, named Litters in the shopping mall, so he would wait there. As he stood up, she asked if he went to the university there. He agreed, and the gold name tag she had told him her name was Mayu. Yuta then told his name as well and suggested they meet there later. Yuta got to Litters Cafe, and while waiting, he thought that it was already past 40 minutes from the meeting, but Mayu didn't come. He realized that he had said he would compensate her, but there was nothing he could do besides apologizing to her manager together with her. He finished his coffee and left the cafe. He thought that she might think he was tricking her, so she just went back home. He saw a couple holding hands, and they released hands as Yuta came between them. As Yuta passed, they joined hands again and walked ahead. Yuta turned to look and thought that they both might be enjoying Christmas together. He remembered that around 1 month ago, he was cheated on by his girlfriend, Riane. Even though they attended different universities, they were of the same age, and their understanding was excellent. He also felt that such a pretty girl was wasted on him. Naturally, they had a different kind of relationship. He had bought an expensive bottle of champagne for their first anniversary date, and he ordered an Italian course dish as well. However, as he arrived in front of his house, he discovered that Rina was in a relationship with another boy. Reminded of all those things, Yuta felt overwhelmed with emotions, so he plugged in his earphones and started listening to music as he walked. Deciding to head back home and enjoy his Christmas Eve alone by reading manga, he thought that it was something a single person would typically do. However, just as he was walking, Mayu came and tapped on his shoulder. He turned and realized that it was Mayu from earlier. She reminded him that she was the one he had met before. Yuta replied that he thought she wasn't going to come, so he had decided to go back home. Then, he suggested going to her manager to apologize. She declined and said that there was no need for that. Yuta asked for the reason, and he was shocked to hear that she had stopped working there as Santa. He wondered if that happened because he bumped into her. So, he asked her if she was fine, and she replied that she was fine. She mentioned that it was about time she stopped working there too. She suggested to Yuta that since she had already told him her name, Could he call her by her name instead of just saying you? Yuta asked if she was okay with giving her name to a man she had recently met. She asked what he meant, and if he said it like that, she sounded like an easy woman. As she said this, she got close to him. He clarified that it wasn't what he meant, but he was a bit concerned about her, even though it wasn't his usual way of thinking. Mayu laughed and, with a smile, said that he didn't have to apologize because she was joking, and she wasn't going to get angry with him like that. Yuta smiled and commented that he thought she could get really angry. She mentioned that when she saw him gloomy, she was worried about him. Mayu then asked him if he knew they were both in the same university. Yuta asked if it was Shinohara University, and she replied that there wasn't any other university around there. Yuta said that he was in the same university. Mayu shared that she was in the first year and inquired about him. When he mentioned that he was in the second year, she told him that since he was older than her, he didn't have to use honorifics with her. He asked if she was sure about that. She had agreed with him. Then he asked if he could do something for her as an apology. It was about her Santa work, and he was the one responsible for her quitting the job that day, even though she had been planning to start a new job. She thought for a while and asked if he was free the next day. He agreed, and then she revealed that she wanted to go somewhere. And then she showed him the Christmas party pass. He started to deny it, but she replied that it was a good place, so he should trust her. He still denied it because it was a place for couples, so why did she want him to go? She replied that it was a whim. As he wondered about that, she clarified that she was kidding, but it was her way of apologizing, and that was fine for her to be selfish and say she wanted to go to a fancy restaurant. He got confused and asked why she was calling him sensei. She apologized because it was her habit. Yuta replied that she could call him Yuta, and calling him sensei sounded a bit stiff. She explained that he was 1 year older than her, and at the club where she worked, she called all her elders senpai. But if he didn't like it, he could just call her normally. Yuta thought that it had been a while since he hadn't been called senpai, and then he said that it couldn't be helped, and she could call him whatever she wanted. She agreed and suggested exchanging their line contacts. He agreed and then made that change. She mentioned that it was decided they would go to the restaurant the next day. He agreed, thinking that whatever happens. Yuta then returned to his home and stated that it was a big deal for him. He threw his phone onto the bed, and while sitting there, he felt hungry, saying that he would go to the convenience store later. He received a message from someone, and as he checked, he found it was from Ayaka. She invited him to a mixer she was hosting on Christmas. Yuta looked at the calendar and said that he had plans for Christmas Eve the next day with Mayu, and going out 2 days in a row was troublesome. He didn't have any choice, and going out for a long time during that season was bothersome. He then texted her that he already had a plan. She called him, and as he picked up, he asked what that was about. She replied that it would be her world, and she questioned whether he was really lying to her about having plans for Christmas, mentioning they didn't have enough people for the mixer the day after next. She begged him to come and even bowed. He replied that he could see her, or rather, why didn't she find someone to fill up their side? And what was she doing that for? She replied that there was a deep reason for that. Yuta asked her to let him know, and what was the best choice. She agreed and said that she was asked to introduce her best choice among his male friends to all of her friends, and then he was selected as the best choice with flying colors. So, she congratulated him. He replied that he was going to hang up the call. She apologized and asked him to wait. He asked what that was, and even if he went as her best choice, no one would pick someone like him. She replied that it wasn't true and that she really liked him. Yuta asked her if she had hit her head or if something else had happened. She replied that he was so embarrassed, and then she asked about his plan, questioning if he was really lying. Yuta replied that he was invited by Santa. She asked if he was the one who got hit on the head. Yuta said that there were a lot of things going on. She replied that she understood but questioned if he was sure he wasn't being scammed. And if he thought about it carefully, a girl asking someone older she just met to date was weird, and maybe a scary person would come in the middle of his date and take all of his money. He asked if she thought so. She replied that to go as far as to pick a girl by throwing her flyers around, that was a pickup artist for him. Yuta said that he never picked up a girl. Ayaka said that it was good to know that his plan didn't overlap with hers, so let's meet at her planned date, in front of the usual train station at 6 p.m., and then she hung up the call. He wondered what that was. The next day, he was waiting for Mayu. When she saw him, she called and thanked him for waiting. As she was crossing the road, other boys were looking at him and said that he had just arrived there and she didn't wait at all. He replied that he was going to come there earlier on the train, but there were lots of people on the train, so he waited for the next one. She then asked if they should go and indicated that it was there. As they headed, Yuta overheard the conversation of 2 boys talking about how cute Mayu was and wondered if she was a model. Yuta looked at her and thought that she had put more effort into her makeup than the last day, and she didn't feel like someone younger than him like the last day. Somehow, he was starting to feel nervous. He remembered the words of Ayaka and thought it was like Ayaka had told him. Mayu got ahead of him and asked what happened. He replied that it was nothing. As they arrived, Mayu informed the reception that she had a reservation at 6:30 p.m. and they had been expecting both of them. As they were taken inside, he noted that it was on the upper floor. Yuta thought he knew what to expect before coming there. He found the place to be really nice. The staff guided them to their table, and they were seated in a spot that truly felt like a couple's space, part of the Christmas course. Mayu took her seat and asked Yuta why he wasn't sitting there. Then, she requested him to take the seat next to her. Yuta thought that it was him who started that, but it was impossible not to be nervous when brought to such a private place. He noticed that she got so close to him and commented that the night view was so beautiful. He looked at her and commented that it was a bit cramped though. She apologized for that. Yuta said he wanted to ask her why she brought him there, and he didn't think she would come to such a place without her boyfriend. She replied that she was glad he asked that. She then revealed the truth from around a week ago when she had been cheated on by her boyfriend. There was no way she could talk about it without drinking. She picked up the empty glass, pretended to drink, and then realized it was empty. Yuta told her that she should have realized that before pretending to drink. After that, they started eating, and she commented that it was so delicious. Then, she asked if he was so caught up with the food that he forgot what she said earlier, mentioning she had said something pretty shocking. He asked if she wasn't the one caught up with the food. She asked what that was, and he might be right, but she wanted to come there with her boyfriend. She begged him a lot, but he would not come, so she decided to come with him. Yuta thought that she was the one who invited him there. He then said that for someone who just got heartbroken, she didn't seem like it. She replied that he finally found that out, and that man was her first boyfriend. She had been rejecting confessions from boys all through middle school and high school. He said that she had been confessed to quite a lot before. She mentioned that it was because she was popular. Yuta thought that there was no wonder with her looks and style like that, and there was no way men around her were going to leave her alone. Then Yuta asked her why she went out with him. She replied that she wanted to do what couples do, and that was the feeling she had when she first met her first boyfriend. She didn't want it to end because of cheating. She wouldn't like that. She wasn't upset because of the end of the relationship, but was more upset because she felt like she had been deceived. Yuta said that some people think so, and he thinks that back then, she was so shocked that she became depressed, so she made up her mind. Mayu said that her boyfriend cheated on her, but she still loved him, so she wanted to pay him back and then break up with him after that. Yuta asked her how she wanted to do that. She replied that she was still thinking about how to do that, and the safest thing to do would be to show her boyfriend that she was getting along with someone other than him. But to do such, she needed someone who could help. The waiter came to excuse and said that the main dish was beef fillet with the Rossini style, and wished them good luck with that. Mayu said that it was rare. He just denied that. She said that she hadn't told him anything yet. He replied that she was about to say that. She said to just listen to her for a while, and firstly, they would show him how close they were after he finds out about them. And she knew both of them were because she started that, but that wasn't her problem. He told her to ask someone else. She replied that there wasn't any way she could, and her friends wouldn't do it. He said that there wasn't any way he could let a younger girl pay for him. She said that she would pay for everything that night, so how about that? And she told him not to say something stiff like that. And if he listened to her wish, maybe something wonderful might happen to them. She replied that she was kidding only. He agreed and said that he wasn't a Santa anymore. She replied that he was right, but she was making a lot of money as a Santa, and he should let her treat him without any complaints. He thought that it was such an absurd argument. Mayu continued that she was paying for everything, so just eat the steak without thinking too much. She then asked to let her feed him. After that, she asked if it was delicious, and he agreed. She said that it was decided, and let's stay together the next day. He replied to wait, and he had other plans for the next day. She asked why he had plans with others for Christmas. He asked why she was treating him so harshly. In reality, he had a mixer planned for the next day. She wondered about that and said that if it didn't seem like he was going to finish earlier, they could do that another time. So was he fine with that? As he wondered about that, he thought that the next day there was a mixer hosted by Ayaka, and that was going to be one hell of a Merry Christmas. The next day, Yuta arrived at the mixer with Ayaka. As they sat there, he inquired how she had discovered that place, which was full of couples due to it being Christmas time. She replied that she had done all her research, and since she was the host, she would ensure that everything went smoothly. Yuta remarked that she was so reliable. She asked what he meant, and he made it sound like she was not always so reliable, insisting that she tell him the reliable reason for that. Yuuta reminded her that the beautiful Santa, Mayu, had made him promise to help her get back at her boyfriend who had been cheating on her. On the same day, Ayaka had asked him to accompany her to a mixer. He mentioned that he wanted to ask her why others weren't there. She replied that he had finally realized the taboo of that gathering. Yuuta told her to shut up and pointed out that there was no one on the guy's side and the girl's side except for the two of them. She replied that she had mistakenly given him the wrong time, and he was only 1 hour early. It was her fault, but he just had to look at his phone to see that she tried to text him, but he didn't see any messages. Surprised, he checked his phone and realized that she was telling the truth. She added that he was probably too focused on her music because he was lonely living alone. Feeling bad that she made him wait there alone, she had come there earlier as well, and then she apologized for that. She hoped that he would find a girl he liked. Yuuta told her that in reality, he didn't want to come to the mixer. She asked why, stating that with her connections, he would have a new girlfriend in no time. He thought that he couldn't tell her directly about that, and inside the mixer, he preferred that they just enjoy their time together talking like that. She asked if that went well, she would take compensation, though. Then, all the other people came and introduced themselves as well. Ayaka greeted them all. Yuuta looked at 2 boys among them and thought that those were good choices for Ayaka, and they both were handsome. Yuuta came to Ayaka and thanked her for inviting him there. She thanked him for coming on short notice, and she was glad he came. He replied that it was, and if she invited him, he would definitely come. She remarked that nothing would come out of that. Yuuta thought that Ayaka seemed to be acting as a cheerful character to them all. Ayaka asked everyone if they had decided what to drink, and she would take their orders. Then, they all ordered the foods and drinks. They all raised their glasses for a cheers. Someone mentioned that he was taking the same class too. Another person commented that he was at the same seminar as their friend. Someone asked another person to bring salad. Natsuki called Yuuta and said that it was nice to meet him. Then, she revealed that she loved manga and asked about him. Yuuta replied that he loved manga too and lately was reading Hai Joshi. He then asked her if she had any recommendations. Natsuki replied that she was reading that too. Yuuta was surprised and asked if she had read the newest chapter. She agreed and said that Yuuta could call her Natsuki. He thought that in the beginning, he wasn't too enthusiastic about that, but he was starting to enjoy it currently. Then, Yuuta asked her if she knew about what happened in the last chapter. Yuuta then said to Ayaka that she was his type, and he wished he had a girlfriend like her. She replied to him that he was so handsome, so he could get one fast. He wondered if he would rather have Ayaka, so what did she think of that? She started to say something to him, but he slammed on the table and laughed. Yuuta thought that Yuuta was aiming for Ayaka, and even though Yuuta didn't have much experience in relationships, the looks on the faces of the men who approached Ayaka because of her looks were familiar to him. Yuuta's attempt seemed like a joke, but it was a serious proposal. He remembered they had such a conversation a while back. He reminded that there were some people with Yuuta and Ayaka. One boy said to Ayaka, "Let's have a drink together next time we meet," and then they left from there. Yuuta asked her why she got along with such a flirty person. She denied and said that they weren't her type. Yuuta asked why she got along so well with everyone then. She remarked that it was better to have lots of friends, and besides, she liked to keep the little connections she had with people. Yuuta thought that he was sure Ayaka was forcing herself to talk to Yuuta, and being nice to everyone else was more trouble than it was worth to him. Yuuta asked if he could ask the girls a question, starting with Mizu. Mizu felt so awkward at that moment. Ayaka replied to Yuuta that he didn't have to ask such questions when they first met someone. Yuuta asked for the reason and explained that he was only trying to talk with them as well, and he wanted to know what everyone wanted to know from a girl. The other 2 boys hesitated as well. Only Yuuta said that if they felt they were bothering the girls, they should just stop. Yuuta was surprised and asked if everyone there was being a killjoy, and he was getting bored of that. Yuuta replied that it wasn't that they were being killjoys, but they were in such a situation. Being rude, Yuuta asked if that was because Yuuta interrupted him. Yuuta retorted that he didn't. Yuuta asked how Yuuta could be so sure, and most of the mixers he had been to were like that, so wasn't that normal? Ayaka said that there might be some mixers like that. Yuuta thought that wasn't why he went there, and that was probably what Ayaka wanted to say. Yuuta then suggested getting back to where they left off, so if they were engaged in telling, they could continue. Yuuta thought that even there was a limit to how much one couldn't read the mood. All of them were sitting silently, and Yuuta wondered what they were going to do with that mood. Ayaka finally spoke up, but suddenly Mayu arrived and recognized Yuuta, greeting him. Yuuta thought that he didn't tell her about the mixer that day, so he wondered why she was there. Then, he said that it was a coincidence. Mayu approached him and said that it was nice to meet him again after the last day. Yuuta thought that she was unusually close, and was her personality like that. Yuuta asked Mayu what she was doing there, and she looked at him, commenting that he was also there. Yuta wondered if that meant Yuta was the boyfriend of Mayu who was cheating on her. Yuta asked her what she was doing there, and she replied that it was only a coincidence and it seemed like he was having fun with others there. He clarified that there was no misunderstanding, and they were only having a Christmas party together. She replied that the big didn't seem like that. He replied that she didn't have to be serious and he had learned his lessons after what happened. He then told others to tell Mayu that it was a party. Just Yuta said that it was a mixer, which was hosted by Yuto himself, and that was the kind of party he often went to where he asked inappropriate questions to girls. So why was he lying? Yuto got angry at him. Mayu said that she knew that, so he remembered that Mayu was his girlfriend, so don't embarrass her. Yuto replied that she was getting that wrong. He then came to her and said that he had been wondering about that, and then he asked her what relationship she had with Yuta, and Yuto thought that she said that she didn't have any of the male friends. Mayu grabbed his collar and asked what he was saying, and he first looked at himself, what his tone was, how his voice was, and also that he was bothering others. Yuta thought that Yuto got quiet. Mayu told the relationship she had with Yuta that they were so close that they spent Christmas Eve together. Yuta was shocked too that she revealed that, and then he asked her what she was saying. She whispered not to get along with her. Yuto asked if she wasn't cheating on him and if she thought it would be fine for women to cheat. She asked if he was saying that men were allowed to cheat. He replied that women shouldn't do such. Just Ayaka tried to grab the attention of everyone and suggested wrapping up all things from there and meeting again when they got the chance. They all stood up from there. Yuto said that he only came there because Ayaka called him and he would come again if they called him. Yuto wondered if he still thought he would get an invitation again. Just Yuto said to Mayu, "Let's go," and Mayu started walking with him, stopping just to tell Yuta to meet later. Amidst the fighting, Yuto and Mayu left the place. Then Natsuki came to Yuta and said that it was too bad, and she suggested meeting later. Ayaka apologized for the wait and said that she had paid the bill, thanking everyone for coming. She also apologized for that day, even though it was Christmas, but she suggested having fun together when they meet again. Then they all left from there. Yuta was walking with Ayaka. She commented that it was the worst and she was really bored at such a time. Yuta replied that it was good she learned something that day, and if she took someone she never had a drink with, she would find out that sometimes there were people like that. Ayaka wondered why such things happened on Christmas Day and how she should apologize to others for that. Yuta replied that she didn't have to be sad, and everyone was covering for her. Even though it ended up like that, he thought everyone had fun. She stated that if that was the case, they should have an after party with others who were left, and she was sure that all were disappointed, even if she did her best. Then, she asked if Yuta and Mayu knew each other. Was Mayu the Santa with whom Yuta spent Christmas Eve? Yuta agreed with those words. Ayaka replied that he should have told her earlier. Yuta replied that he wasn't expecting to meet Mayu at the cafe, and then asked Ayaka how she knew Mayu. Ayaka replied that coincidences do happen. Yuta asked if Mayu was Ayaka's junior. Ayaka agreed and said that the last day, she asked her where the cafe was. Yuta wondered about that. Ayaka asked him if she told him how close she was to Mayu, and that she didn't seem surprised. Yuta said that maybe Ayaka forgot about that. She replied, "Let's put those things away." Then they reached a corner, and Yuta mentioned that he was going in a different way. She agreed, apologizing again for what happened that day, and expressing her intention to make up for it. He replied that it was fine, so she didn't have to worry about it. She mentioned that she forced him to come there, but it ended up badly, so that didn't sit well with him. Then, she asked to let her take him on a date someday. He replied that she was confident in that. She explained that most guys were happy to hear that. Yuta then said that if he was that easy, they wouldn't have gotten along so well, and he enjoyed having casual talks with her like that. She was happy to hear that. Yuta thanked her for that day and suggested meeting later. He went home, and as he lay on the bed, he checked his phone, hoping that Ayaka didn't feel too down because of that day. He then checked Instagram and guessed that everyone was having a good Christmas. He found a post from Rain, where she wrote that she was going to have a beautiful day. Yuta tried to stop thinking about that, unable to believe that on that particular day, he saw a post that reminded him of her. He hoped that Mayu was fine with Yuto. Rain stated that she wanted to pay him back for cheating on her and then break up with him, and he didn't think that would have ended amicably with Yuto, who seemed to have a lot of pride. Feeling concerned, Yuta decided to call Mayu, but she wasn't answering. He thought she might have gone home, and there was nothing he could do if she wasn't answering. He then went to his balcony and started smoking. Suddenly, his phone rang, and as he checked, he found it was from Mayu. He answered the phone, and she asked if he was worried about her, so he called her. He agreed and mentioned that Yuto seemed like a troublesome person, and since she left earlier, he was a bit worried. She replied that there wasn't any problem, and she was about to call him too. She did a double take when she received a call from him. He replied that it was quite a coincidence, and then he asked why she wanted to call him. She replied that she wanted to apologize for getting everyone involved there. Only because of her, the mood of everyone became awkward. Yuta and the others had nothing to do with that, but she did. Yuta thought that Mayu felt responsible for what happened with Yudo, and she must have been hurt as well. He reassured her not to worry about that and mentioned that the mood was already bad before she came, and he thought she arrived at the correct time. Mayu said that it didn't change the fact that she bothered all of them there. Yuta asked him if she had broken up with Yudo. She agreed and said that it wasn't a good idea to accept a confession because she wanted to do what couples do. The whole thing started because she started dating with such a mindset. Yuta reassured her that couples at such times were like that, and he didn't think there were many couples who started perfectly. Most people tried to hide such things, but Mayu was so honest that she told him everything that she had in her mind, and he was happy about that. Mayu replied that Yuta was really a senpai. He asked her to explain that. She replied that it meant he was good at making people comfortable, and even though she was expecting him to say Mayu was at fault too, Yuta replied that she knew well it was her fault, but she still couldn't sort out her feelings, so that's why she called him. Mayu asked him if that was what it meant to be mature, and she respected him. Yuta replied that it felt weird when she suddenly said something like that. She replied that she didn't respect others very easily. She then changed the topic and said that she was looking at social media, and there were all these couples photos that were infuriating. Instagram was full of photos of people bragging about their dates, and she was so bored of looking at them all. Yuta replied that it was because of the time of Christmas, so he saw them all as well. Mayu replied that it became a bit of a lonely Christmas for both of them. He agreed with her words, but she added that she was glad to meet him there and she felt so relaxed whenever he started listening to her feelings. He replied that he was glad to hear that. Mayu stated that she was going to take a bath and make up to him later. He replied that he was going to sleep as well, so bye. With that, they hung up the phone. Yuta remembered her words to make up with him later, and without them knowing it, their positions had changed, which was so funny. As they encountered a new day, it was going to start, and the premonition of such seemed to make the familiar scenery more vivid. Yuta recalled that when he was in the club for the first time, he had a cute girlfriend, and he managed to maintain good academic performance too. His college life went smoothly, but currently, all those things have changed, and he is getting a bad smell from washing his dishes. Just as his phone rang, he mentioned that it was the time. He went outside wearing his upper coat, but he still felt cold because there was ice everywhere. He then saw the drinks and mentioned that he had submitted the report, so he would drink something before heading home. He placed the money, and as he clicked on what he wanted, suddenly Mayu came and chose one. She thanked him for the purchase. Yuta asked her what she was doing there during the winter break. She replied that a lot of guys were happy to see her during the winter break. He then asked her to pay for his drink. She agreed and asked what he wanted. He replied that he wanted a cafe au lait. She agreed and bought that for him. Then she commented that it is so cold, and asked what he wanted. He agreed and said that he liked it cold. She then thanked him for the other day and said that it was about that time with Yudo. Yuta replied that she had already thanked him for that. She then drank that and mentioned that she wanted to thank him again. As she drank, she realized that it was bitter in taste. Yuta asked why she drank that. She replied that she was very lucky to meet him there and asked if she could make that up to him. Yuta replied that he didn't need anything. She suggested that instead of making that up to him, she wanted to thank him for the day she felt a bit saved by him, and normally being together with him was enough as a thank you. But he was such a kind person, and then she suggested that she would grant his one wish if he asked for it. Yuta replied that he couldn't think of anything, and then he suggested she do his chores. As they walked outside of his building, he questioned whether she was really going to come to his house. She replied that he was the one who asked her to do that. Heading upstairs, Yuta wondered why he asked her to do such a thing, and she seemed so eager. Then he asked if he could take his wish back, as he was pretty good at housework. She told him not to say such things because they were so close to that. As they stood in front of his room, she commented that it was so cold outside, so he should hurry and open the room. He placed the key there and opened it. Mayu excused herself, and as she entered, she commented that his room was so tidy. Yuta replied that if that was tidy to her, then what kind of room was she expecting? She replied that it would be like a garbage dump, and compared to that, it wasn't a problem at all. He asked if she came with such expectations. Mayu replied that she was currently free, so let's finish the work quickly. She then noticed that he was taking off his upper coat, so she asked what happened. He replied that it was nothing, and he thought that there was a girl in his room, and himself from a month ago wouldn't have imagined such a situation. He then started to place his coat there, and she came over, stating that if he left his clothes around, they would get wrinkled. He replied that he could do that by himself. Mayu then proceeded to wash the dishes and asked why he was living alone. He replied that there were lots of reasons, and then he asked why she questioned that suddenly and if it wasn't easy to live alone. She replied that she was sure there would be food every time he got back home, and he didn't seem to cook, so she thought he would prefer that instead. Yuuta replied that it was easier to live back at home. She then finished cleaning the work. He was shocked to see that she cleaned so well and said that it was amazing she completed it so quickly. He couldn't believe that all those annoying dishes were gone. She replied that she lived alone too, so she was pretty used to that. He said that it was a girl for her. She replied that she would make lunch next time, so he could sit back and have a rest. He asked if she was going to make lunch too. As she agreed, he asked if she was trying to make him owe her a favor. She smiled and said that it was all her thanks only, so she pushed him and told him to stop saying weird things and just watch TV or do something else. He asked if she didn't need any help. She agreed and told him to just go and sit there. He thought that he would have to do as she told him, so he started watching TV, and just then Ayaka texted him to play. He wondered if she was a kid. She then asked him to meet at the department store the next day for shopping in the evening. Yuuta said that it was not like he had plans the next day, so he might go as well. Just as Mayu came to him, thanking him for waiting, she showed that the lunch was made with the stuff stored in the refrigerator. He thanked her and started to eat. She asked him how it was, and as he replied that it was delicious, she said she was glad to hear that. Then she questioned if he was in any club. He replied that he was in the basketball club. But why did she ask? She answered that when she entered the university, she was also a member of a club for a while, so she was interested in ordinary college students like him. Yuuta said that if it was her, she didn't have to do anything to attract ordinary college students. She denied it and said that there were a lot of so-called party people around her, and she was not jaded enough to think they were normal. Yuuta said that's why she went to date Yuuto. She replied not to bring that topic up again, and she was still reflecting on that. Just as she started to eat, something got stuck in her neck. She coughed, and Yuuta asked her if she was fine. He got close to her to make her feel better by doing so. Just as he removed his hand from her, he apologized. She denied his apology and then asked if he had any girlfriend. He replied that he didn't and had one in the past, and he was not going to let another one inside his room. Mayu replied that it was rare to hear such in that generation, and he was such a serious guy. Just then, her phone started ringing. She said that it was time for her work. Yuuta was shocked to hear that she came to his house before her work. She got ready to leave for her work, and Yuuta apologized to her for that, mentioning that it was right before her work time. She replied that at such times, he should thank her, and while he was at it, if he thanked her for the food, she would be happy. He then thanked her for the food. She welcomed him and, waving her hand, said that she would come there again. Then she left. As she got some distance away, she turned around to see and thought that his house was much tidier than she expected. She remembered that when he told her to do his chores, she thought it would be a mess. She had assumed that he would usually seem like a reliable person and it would be interesting to find out he couldn't do anything at his home. His refrigerator didn't have many things, so she could only make sandwiches with the ingredients she found. However, when she looked at his face, she became so happy and decided that she would cook something better the next time she came to him. The next day, Yuuta was with Ayaka at the Sage Mall, and he suggested that they shouldn't have come that day there, but she was the one who had invited him. She replied that he was the one who could have carried her bags. He replied that he was there, and there were others she could ask. She replied that she wasn't letting him do that for free, but she would treat him to whatever he wanted for dinner that day. He agreed, and then he stated that on such days, people used to buy their cosmetics. She agreed and said that there were a lot of review sites for the products, and she once used them as a reference. However, they had a scheme where they could get a gift if they gave a positive review, and because of that, she bought the hair treatment which was full of fake reviews, resulting in her damaged hair. That's why she decided everything by herself, so she wouldn't regret that in the future. And that wasn't only limited to the cosmetics. Yuuta thought that her personality could be harsh at times, but her strong personality knew about that side of her besides him. He then commented that it was a waste. She asked if he thought like that, and she gave her review that it was a fair price, but she guessed that it was a bit expensive. Yuuta thought that wasn't what he meant. Ayaka said that she wanted to get a better look. She was checking all others as well, and after that, they would decide on a place to eat. Yuuta agreed and thought that even if she had such a strong personality, that was a different story when it came to shopping. After the shopping, they went to eat at a place. While sitting there, Ayaka mentioned that he chose an Odin shop, and she had expected to go to a bit more fancy place. Yuuta replied that he wanted to come there, and then he said to just have a look there. As she saw, she got that it was a lot. Yuta said that it seemed delicious, and he was curious to know about that. And it was all only for a few thousand yen, so what a bargain that was. Ayaka said that she got what he meant, and then she served him. Yuta noticed two people whispering while looking at them. He thought that even though he was the one who brought her there, she was so beautifully out of place in the Odin shop. A waiter came to serve the mochi kinchaku, which was free for couples. She asked if he was sure, and then she thanked him by taking that. She then told Yuta to just accept that. As she took that, she found it so delicious. Yuta thought that he had somehow become comfortable eating with Ayaka. He remembered that when they were in school, they occasionally had lunch together during the break, but at that time, someone was conscious of the stares around them. It took a lot of effort to be around her, and he had to be prepared for people around him to tease him or get jealous of him. But currently, that doesn't bother him as much anymore, since they're all grown up, and he wonders if that's because the people around them are looking at them as adults and treating them like that. Ayaka asked him what happened and if he didn't like the Odin. He replied that it just hit him that they were becoming adults and they were already over 20. She was shocked and asked what about that. He replied that he thought that when she turned 20, she would be busy with her work only. But that wasn't happening. And yet people around them treated them as adults. Time would not wait for them, and that peaceful college life would not last forever. Ayaka said that he thought about it, and they would be seniors in college next year and would need to start a job too. He said that first, there's job hunting and then graduating. And as the environment changes, things that they took for granted were changing so rapidly. If that becomes true, he was worrying that their relationship would change as well, but he was also afraid to lose that change. He wished to go back to his middle school days and be young again, doing club activities and not thinking about the future. Ayaka became serious as well and said that she wanted to go back too. Just then, a message came on Yuyuta's phone from Mayu. He thought that she was only 1 year younger than him, but she seemed so energetic, and he felt like he was unwittingly comparing that difference to himself. He took his phone in his hand, and Ayaka asked him if something sudden came up. He replied that it was nothing. She said to let her guess that it would be from his new girlfriend. Yuta tried to deny that, but she wasn't going to listen to him. Yuta thought that Ayaka was very perceptive since they both knew each other for a very long time. And then he suggested let's eat the leftovers before that gets cold. As he started to eat, Ayaka commented that there wasn't anything left, so let her cut her food and divide it. He thanked her for that. While eating, Ayaka called him and said that there were lots of things that would change in the future, but she wasn't going to leave him. He thanked her upon hearing that. She continued, saying part of that was because it would be easier for her. He replied that she wasn't going to be honest. She laughed and said they should stick together even when they become adults. Yuta thought that they had been together since high school, and he hoped that it would never change. Just then, Mayu was passing by the restaurant and coincidentally saw them both. The next day, Mayu rang the doorbell at Yuyuta's house, and as he opened the door, she asked if he had something to say. He inquired why she was there, and she replied that he had to apologize for making her wait in the cold. He responded that if she said so, she was the one who came suddenly. Mayu then noticed something and mentioned that it was a small token of appreciation from her, and she had brought a present for him. He asked her to come in, and she entered. Yuta thought that he already knew she had said she would come there again, but he didn't think it would be so quick. He realized he was still in pajamas, so he decided to change and took out his clothes. Mayu called out to him as she approached. He asked the reason for her call, and she, feeling shy, apologized to him. He replied that it was fine. She asked if he wasn't embarrassed, and he responded that it wasn't a big deal. Then his belly growled, so he said he was hungry. By closing her eyes, she suggested letting her make something light for him. Yuta became happy to hear that and, thanking her, added that he had gone shopping the previous day, so he also had some ingredients. She agreed but suggested he wear something first. As he wore his clothes, she asked if people normally put on their pants first, thinking that was the correct order. Yuta, drinking something from a bowl, thought that she was more naive than he had thought. He replied that he had just woken up, so his mind was right, and then he praised the soup she made for him. She questioned what he usually ate, and he replied that it would be either judon or konbini bento. Mayu said that it was better for his health if he cooked his own food. He replied that he knew but couldn't do that as he was a man living all by himself, but he had been thinking about changing that. Then he asked if she could teach him how to cook, if she was fine with that. She replied that when she looked in the fridge, there were all sorts of things. Yuta suggested they do that. She agreed and replied to leave that to her. As they began to cook, Mayu wore the apron. Then she asked him to crack 4 eggs for her. He agreed and thought that she looked so cute wearing that apron, which was a bit vexing. She mentioned that she wondered what other ingredients there were. She then took out the hollandaise sauce and asked why Yuta had that. He replied that he had bought it online on a whim and left it there. She suggested they use it, otherwise it would go to waste. She gathered more ingredients, and he commented that she was getting used to his home, so why did she come there? She asked why he was asking, explaining that she just wanted to come by and see him on her way to her parents' house because that day was the last day she could see him that year. Yuta mentioned that the next day was New Year's Eve. He reminded her that a lot of things had changed that year, like his girlfriend cheating on him. Mayu called him and asked if he knew what they were currently making. He mentioned sunny side up eggs. She continued, saying that after all the trouble prepping, she was enjoying herself so much that she forgot to teach him. She added that she would teach him how to cook next time, so she would do the rest of the things by herself. He asked if she was sure about that. She agreed and said that it was where she would show her skills. She then started cooking and finally made it. Yuta took a bite and said that it was so delicious. Mayu ate it as well and said that it was delicious. Yuta commented that he didn't expect that he would be able to eat such restaurant-like food at home. Mayu told him not to put her on such a spot and mentioned that she only cooks 5 times a week. He commented that she cooked a lot, and that seemed so cool. If she got the chance, just make it again, so he would love to eat it again. She became happy, and then she took a bite as well. Yuta reminded her that a lot of things happened in that year, but it wasn't bad because of Mayu and Ayaka. Mayu said that it was almost time for her work, so she had to go. He suggested that if she was really there, she could just come for a brief visit. And since she didn't live close by, she shouldn't have to come there. She replied that she didn't come to his house only for that reason. He inquired if there was another reason. She replied that she wanted to have a meal with him, like 5 times a week. He was shocked to hear that. She asked if it wasn't lonely to eat alone, so they could have a meal together like that once. He replied that 5 times a week was so often, almost like every day. She explained that she had a lot of free time since she quit her club and broke up with Yuto as well, leaving her with only one choice to go to Yuta's home. He remarked that she was killing time there. She replied that when he put it that way, she sounded like a bad girl. He responded that it was what he was saying. He thought that he was sure there were lots of men outside who would be happy to be asked by Mayu. Mayu suggested that she would come twice a week. He replied that it sounded better than the last suggestion. She said that she was going to take his side, all for herself. He thought that he still didn't realize it at that time. He then asked the meaning of that, and he thought that the relationships around him were changing gradually. She replied that it was the success of negotiations. The scene was half a month into the new year, and Yuta got into his normal routine, but there was one change at his home. Mayu shouted at him that he had again messed up his room when she was out, and why did that go back to the way that was every time she wasn't there. Yuta thought that Mayu was regularly coming to his home 3 times a week. He replied to her to shut up and asked what kind of man cleans his room. She suggested him to at least clean his room at the beginning of the year. She then showed him his shirt. He asked her to stop that and assured her that he would fold them later by himself. She denied and said that she didn't want to be fooled again, and he told her the same thing last week as well. But he didn't do that either. He reminded her that in the last days of last year, she made a deal with him that she would come to his home twice a week. But she came to his home thrice a week, so he was at a loss, but he was grateful for that he was getting good food to eat. Mayu thanked him for waiting and brought the food. He ate that and said that it was so good, and there wasn't any way that he could make something like that. Mayu remarked that it was worth the effort to cook, since he made it so delicious. He said that it was really good and told her that when he was on his own, he would just grab a convenience store bento or whatever and be done with that. So he was really thankful that she cooked for him, and he guessed that he would need to pay her back. Mayu said that since she was living alone too, and she only ate with him in her free time too, so he didn't have to worry about that. He replied that she was so good at understanding the condition of his wallet. She said that if he insisted on thanking her, so one Vuitton's wallet was fine. He was shocked to hear that, and lying on the bed, he said not to ask for one with that brand. She assured him that she was only joking around. Yuta thought that even if they both split the cost of the food, he always had her do the housework and cooking for him. If there were any special occasions, he would think about that wallet, but he didn't know how expensive that would be. He then asked about her birthday. By having a meal, she replied that it was the next day. He was surprised to hear that. She asked what happened to him, and he replied that he was only asking. Mayu said that the next day, she would be turning 19, and she had a congratulatory party with her friends. He thought that he was planning to give her something for her birthday as a thank you for all the help she had given him. But her birthday was the next day, and he thought he could at least take her out for dinner. However, she already had a plan. She asked if he was planning to buy a gift for her, and he replied that he was. She exclaimed that he had only known her for around a month, but still, he was thinking of giving her a gift. He explained that it wasn't like that, and he couldn't afford a branded thing, but since she always did that much for him, he thought to give her a gift as a thank you. She replied that it was only a joke and that it was already enough to let her barge into his house like that, so he didn't have to worry about that. He said that he wanted to give. She replied that he was so serious, but if he said so, she was looking forward to that. The next day, Yuta and Ayaka went to a shop to buy wallets. There, Ayaka said that those wallets looked the same to her, so let's go to another shop. She grabbed his hand and was taking him from there. He wondered why she didn't choose that shop, considering they had already changed a lot of shops. She replied that he was the one who asked her to do that. Yuta joined his hands in front of her, and she recalled that he told her at the campus that he was sure that Mayu would be disappointed with Yuta's choice, so just come to help him out. Ayaka said to him that she didn't even know what Mayu's preferences were. Yuta apologized for that and said that Ayaka was the one he could ask something like that. Ayaka replied that since she had already decided to help him, she would choose the best one, otherwise, her credibility would be at stake. Then she reminded him not to forget the lunch as he promised. He agreed, and then they went to see wallets priced at 96,000 yen and 72,000 yen. Yuta denied and said that he was going back to his home. She replied to him that she was sure there was something he could buy, so let's look around some more places. Yuta thought that if she thought of being calm, no matter how much he appreciated her help, giving a girl who wasn't even their girlfriend an expensive gift was outrageous. Ayaka called him and said to just look at that, and it seemed more affordable and nice as well. Yuta replied that it would look good on Mayu, but still, that was still high. Ayaka said that he was giving Mayu a birthday gift and a thank you gift as well, so that would be enough. She revealed that the shop was running a secret sale for their members, so if they bought 2 of the wallets, they would give them a bigger discount. For example, if the price was 20,000 yen, it would become 15,000 yen only. Yuta was surprised to hear that much of a discount. She said that she would buy something too. He replied that he couldn't make her do such a thing. She insisted that it would be fine, and she would make herself look like a fool, pretending she was helping a friend. He asked if she was fine with that, and she agreed, saying that she would go find the clerk. Yuta commented that she was so kind. He looked at the wallet and thought about the last time he faced trouble buying an expensive gift when he was going out with Riane. When they were dating, he quietly gathered information about her favorite things, what she wanted, and remembered spending a few days preparing for that, worrying whether it would look good with the clothes she was wearing or what the latest designs were. He wondered why he was reminded of her. Just then, he heard someone's voice complimenting the wallet, saying it was so cute. As Yuta looked at the person, he found Rihanna there, and she also saw him. Yuta wondered what she was doing there, and she asked him if it had been a long time since they had met and how he was. With a trembling sound, he replied that he was well, and he wondered why she was there. Friends of Rihanna asked her if Yuta was her friend. She replied that it was something like that. Then one asked her if she was going to buy the wallet. She agreed and mentioned that it was a bit expensive as well. Yuta thought that when they broke up with someone and saw their picture together, it hurt him. He remembered that 2 months ago, when he broke up with her upon discovering her cheating, she didn't make any excuses. She must have known that he saw her with someone else, but when Yuta asked to break up, she just nodded her head in silence, and there was nothing left to say. Rihanna hoped that they would like the wallet she was purchasing. Yuta thought to calm down because all things were already over. Rihanna came close to him and asked if they could meet again. Ayaka intervened and shouted at Rihanna, asking if she was serious about that. As Rihanna saw Ayaka, she left from there. Ayaka then walked in that direction, stopped, and apologized to Yuta, stating that she was trying to be calm, but trying to be patient as well still irked her. He thanked her and mentioned that the girl was his ex-girlfriend. Ayaka replied that she knew because she had seen pictures of her a lot of times, and even though Rihanna was cute, that was all. Yuta asked her if she thought so. Yuta thought that there were a lot of good things about her besides her face, but he wondered what Rihanna meant by wanting to meet again. After all that, Yuta stood at a corner and became exhausted because even though it was for a few minutes, the emotional damage was significant. Then Ayaka came to him and gave his wallet back to him. He asked if she was sure about paying for everything at once. She replied that she was the one who should be thankful to him, and she got a lot of points for paying for everything at once. He replied that she was so greedy, and he found something else in his pocket besides the gift from Mayu. Ayaka asked him to open it. As he opened it, he found something so cool and asked what it was. She replied that it was a present for him. He asked why she was giving it so suddenly, and she explained that it was a birthday gift. She realized that she had never given him a birthday gift before. Yuta became very happy and thanked her for it. She said she was glad that he was happy and suggested they go somewhere. He asked, where? She replied, to take my payment for that day as you promised. Then he remembered about the lunch. As they were walking, she stopped, turned towards him, got close, and mentioned that it was the first time she was giving a gift to a man. In return, she wanted him to show his gratitude with his actions and his money. Yuta wondered about the first time and thought that his relationship with Ayaka would never develop into a romantic way. And that made him happy as well. He told her that she had just said something to ruin that. He thought that his heart, which had been shaken by suddenly meeting Riene, had been completely healed. And then he parted ways with Ayaka, checking his money. He realized he didn't have enough for even a coffee. Upon reaching home, he noticed the lights were on and assumed Mayu was there, probably poking around his room and reading manga. As he opened the door, Mayu welcomed him. He questioned her about what she was doing at his home so late. She replied that, as he could see, she was watching TV. He asked what she was watching, and she turned the TV off, stating that it was a secret, so he shouldn't pry into a girl's secret. He assured her that he wasn't trying, only asking for his remote. After retrieving the remote and switching on the TV, he discovered it was a show where a lady talked about when women would want a boyfriend. Yuta commented to Mayu that he didn't expect her to be watching something like that. She replied that it was rude of him. He asked for the reason behind watching it, and she explained that she was worried she might get left behind. He asked for the meaning of odd. She had replied that she had been dating Yuto, and on that day at the party, she had told her friends that she had broken up with Yuto. They had tried to comfort Mayu, but their words hadn't resonated with her, and she had felt as if it were the problem of anyone else. Somehow, she had been tired of hearing such words. Yuta had said that, so that was the reason for ending the party early, even though it was her birthday that day. She had agreed and stated that maybe she had gone out with Yuto because she had wanted to act as a couple. She hadn't been hurt when Yuto cheated on her, but faking that she was hurt had also been painful. She had then asked if she was odd. Yuta had replied that maybe she was, but back then, she got mad. Even though there was a reason for her to get into a relationship to feel like a couple, she still got jealous when her boyfriend looked at other girls. She had replied that Yuta was wrong and that she had only gone out with Yuto because he was the president, but he had cheated on her and played with her like a doll, and she had wanted to cream him. Yuta had replied to her to calm down. She wondered if she was odd and easy or both. Yuta thought that others might not understand her way of thinking, but the reason she was struggling was that she was facing herself straight and worrying about that. Then Yuta said that everyone had their way of thinking and for the current time, she might wait for her chance to encounter, so she should wait. She replied that she had waited, and then she met, and then she was cheated. Yuta then apologized to her for that. She continued that she had already told him that she was so tired of comforting words like that, and she was envious of others and wanted to be like a couple. Yuta then went to check something and said that he had something for her. He then gave her the gift, wishing her a happy birthday, and said, "May the keys get along well always." She got excited to see the gift and thanked him. She got so touched, and that was what she liked too. She adored that brand, and then she asked if he was a genius to know that. Yuta replied that, after all, they had spent a lot of time together, so he could tell. He thought that he was so glad he had asked Ayaka for her help. Then he said to Mayu that he was so glad that it fit her. Just as someone rang the doorbell, Mayu wondered who would be that late, and she went to check. As she opened the door, Ayaka asked Mayu what she was doing there at such a time. Mayu and Yuta were shocked to see Ayaka there.